I was I was literally just looking at some of the influencers today. I just happened to see a couple of posts by some, well-known influencers, and I've unfollowed quite a few because they should know better, I think. I think many of them just they hop on trends to get views, and we know, like, now that I've been more out there on social media, I know how to go viral. Like, I know what kind of content I can post immediately and go viral. So people just know what works, and a lot of that stuff will work and will get views. But at the end of the day, it's like when it comes to the Three Eye Atlas, I think that most of us kind of, well, maybe not everybody, but many of us are aware that this is not a real thing. That this was like, they've been talking about this kind of alien wild card thing happening for years now, and it's another way for people to give their power. It's another thing for people to give their energy to, when really what we should be doing is coming back to our own power. Like, there's going to be no savior. Like, either whether you think it's a savior or you think it's going to be, some kind of alien attack, it's like fear. It's fear mongering, and it's not real. It's not even a real thing. It's all fabricated. At least that's the way I see it. That's how I see it. And when people go and they do these channelings and they say it's Christ consciousness or it's whatever their view is, I just think like I instantly don't trust that person anymore.
To a Broaderlands podcast.
The opinions expressed on Broaderlands podcast are those of the guest speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or Broaderlands podcast.
Rebecca, welcome to Broaderlands podcast. What an honor to have you on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. I'm grateful to have found you. I feel like you're very authentic. You speak from your heart, and yeah, it was very, that's an attraction for me, when I hear people in the spiritual community, especially when I find authenticity, because I feel like that's more and more the biggest minority in today's world is authenticity.
I agree. And whenever someone says that to me, I take it as like probably the biggest compliment that you can get in this day and age. I'm like, thank you. I appreciate that. Because there's a lot of masks, and there's a lot in the spiritual community that I've seen over the years. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah, because we live in a world where they we're not taught to utilize our own power, our own authenticity and intuition and all the other Claire bears and stuff like that. We're always looking for an outside savior or believe this way, don't think outside this box, and it's like, it's harder and harder to find sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I'm always talking about outsourcing our power and, even just blindly following and trusting people, because there's just there's a lot of snakes out there, a lot of wolves in sheep's clothing, and they're very good at their art and craft. So it's we've all been burned. I've been burned many times in that sense too. So I've learned my lessons, and the what it's always led me back to is to just be with my own self and get my own answers from within.
Even in the podcasting world, you'll see like all the big podcasters, the one on the very top, if he starts doing something or she starts doing something, then everyone else follows. Like, you see those thumbnails where it's like clickbait thumbnails where it's kind of like a confusing, or they lied to you type, the Vatican lied to you, and they have scary faces or confused or shocked. And it's like, man, I'm just going to be me. And if people don't want to click on, don't click on it. But I'm not going to do that for clickbait. It feels fake.
I agree. Yeah, the smoke and mirrors and all that kind of stuff is it's getting, I think we're entering in the age even more of frequency. I mean, we're there already, but the frequency is even more and more and more important. And so it's like, people are just, anyone with a sense of integrity and, that is truly in their truth, they're just going to be turned off by that kind of stuff, because it's just like, we're here for the real and the true and the authentic. I think it's just going to get even more pronounced, where you're sort of people are backing off of people like that are clickbaiting and, doing that kind of stuff.
And I love your Instagram account. You have a lot of great content you put out there, and I really appreciate it. One of them made me laugh this morning, and I've seen it before though. But I was like, oh, you talk about the three eye atlas, and the all these influencers talking about they're channeling it, and yeah. What's your take on all that?
It's so funny
Three eye
because I
atlas.
was I was literally just looking at some of the influencers today. I just happened to see a couple of posts by some, well-known influencers, and I've unfollowed quite a few because they should know better, I think. I think many of them just they hop on trends to get views, and we know, like, now that I've been more out there on social media, I know how to go viral. Like, I know what kind of content I can post immediately and go viral. So people just know what works, and a lot of that stuff will work and will get views. But at the end of the day, it's like when it comes to the three eye atlas, I think that most of us kind of, well, maybe not everybody, but many of us are aware that this is not a real thing. That this was like, they've been talking about this kind of alien wild card thing happening for years now, and it's another way for people to give their power. It's another thing for people to give their energy to, when really what we should be doing is coming back to our own power. Like, there's going to be no savior. Like, either whether you think it's a savior or you think it's going to be, some kind of alien attack, it's like fear. It's fear mongering, and it's not real. It's not even a real thing. It's all fabricated. At least that's the way I see it. That's how I see it. And when people go and they do these channelings and they say it's Christ consciousness or it's whatever their view is, I just think like I instantly don't trust that person anymore. I'm instantly going, I don't trust that person. Another thing I see a lot of along the same lines is the remote viewing thing. And there are these influencers that say that they are remote viewing, like the number one remote viewer, and she's on podcasts and stuff. Remote viewing is always done blind. So, if you're going to say, I'm going to go and remote view this and this celebrity, it's not remote viewing. It's a psychic reading, but it's not remote viewing. But it's almost like they want to use the remote viewing word so they can catch on to that buzzy, sort of trendy kind of thing, and it sounds cool, but they're not really remote viewing. So I don't understand why they're like going out there like saying that, when it's if you look into the history of it and what it actually is, it's almost kind of offending, because they're taking something that is supposed to be a certain thing, and they're diluting it by saying that, they're going to go spy on so-and-so celebrity and see what they're up to. It doesn't work that way.
No, I appreciate that. And there's one gentleman, I won't say his name, but he's blowing up really big right now. But it's like, it's so clear to me that he's reading a AI script and he's creating all these stories. Like, it's like, and even the stuff he's talking about with the Council of Nicaea, for an example, he doesn't even have that right. So how am I supposed to believe in this galactic story that you're putting out there if you can't even get the basics right here on Earth
Yeah.
correct? Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
crazy.
I found a lot of like shamanic teachers and like spiritual I call them spiritual influencers, because they're not teachers to me. They're not like whatever they call themselves, but they're using AI and ChatGPT to write all their stories and their content, and they're selling like massive amounts of courses. A lot of these people are like the 7-figure earners and whatever they are, but they're not writing their own content. And I'm like, that is not, in integrity. And when I can tell the tone of ChatGPT, that's it. I'm unfollowing.
Well, a lot of people, they just, I know a lot of people, a lot of friends and family that I know personally, and they don't like to do the research.
Yeah.
They rather just listen to someone, get entertained, and then they kind of fall into a belief system. But I think it's very important to have a healthy skepticism in anyone, even whatever I say, and really just look into things for yourself, and most importantly, utilize your intuition.
Yeah.
and your higher self, and follow your own truth, and yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I really appreciate that about you. So, um,
Thank you.
maybe before we, I'd love for you to start off with your upbringing. Share a little bit about your life journey to this point, if you don't mind.
Yeah, definitely. So I essentially grew up with a family of there's 5 of us, 5 children, and three brothers and a sister. And my family, my early days was a little traumatic, like many of us. My father was addicted to drugs, and that kind of split the family up, and he was kind of like out of my life for many years. And the addiction was a big part of my upbringing. It ran in the family. And so right out of high school, my 2 brothers also got addicted to drugs as well. And within a about a 8-year range, I guess you could say, I lost my father and my 2 brothers all to drug overdose, which was, pretty big imprint on my life. And I feel like that's what sort of projected me really quickly into like a spiritual journey. Although I was always spiritual, but it really like set the tone for my life, because I had a lot of fear. I had a lot of things I wanted to do, but I was very fearful. And I was a registered nurse for uh over 10 years. And even when I was in nursing school, I remember being in nursing school, kind of starting to work on my traumas and learning about energy healing. And I realized when I discovered energy healing and energy, I realized that I was like in the wrong profession. Like I knew that that was not meant to be my work, my life's work.
Mm.
And I still went through my nursing career, but I continued to learn and do shamanic work and shamanic healing, and learn so many different skills alongside working as a nurse. But I was still kind of like afraid to sort of like, many people, it's not easy to sort of leave our conventional type of job, our security. And it was when my brother Adam passed away that I was like, okay, life is very short. We don't know how long we're here for. And I want to accomplish, I want to, do the things that my soul is telling me I'm meant to do. So it was like, really, that's when I set myself really out there to start doing my healing work and starting a business and everything. And shortly after that, I walked away from my nursing career forever. Forever. So, I never looked back. And yeah, that really set the stage for kind of everything that I do now.
I've heard you share about it was a you did something where you kind of question and try to understand um what your mother was doing when you were in the womb. I'd love for you to touch on that because that's powerful.
Yeah, so this was like a few years back, and I was actually curious. And I was also something that I teach in a certain training that I teach people. It was we were like exploring our own ancestry. And I became curious about what was happening. I thought I don't even know what was going on with my mom when I was in the womb. So I asked her. I said, what was happening. And I kind of learned a lesson. If you're going to do this, give your mom a heads up, like
Mm.
prepare her, because sometimes it's emotional, like bringing up the past, and it really just depends on the person. But like, yeah, give them a little notice, give them a little preparatory work. But like, I said, what happened when I was in the womb? What was going on in your life? What were you doing? And she was basically, my mom had become a born again Christian. She was, I'm the second child, so I was newly married. So the turmoil hadn't started yet in the family life. So there was really little stress, she said. And she was basically just praying with my Auntie Carrie and going to church and reading the Bible. And her whole focus was basically being a born again Christian. And I found it so fascinating because I have noticed that over the years, I will like start reciting scripture in my sleep or in between.
Mm.
And sometimes like the scriptures feel very ancient, but sometimes like I know they're probably in the Bible. And where would I even, like, where did that even come from? So when she told me that, I was like, that makes so much sense, because whatever happens in the womb, whether it's the emotional state of our mother or what's happening, in the her nervous system and her emotions, like that's going to come, we're going to be imprinted in some way. And that could be both good and bad, depending on what was happening with our mother. It's good to know, because maybe we had all this weird fear and we could never really understand where it came from. Well, that's passed down from our mother in the womb. So yeah, I just found it so fascinating, because I know that's probably where the scriptures came from.
Interesting. And there's actually research that actually confirms. I mean, there's a lot of science that's backing that up now. Like
Mm.
we can bring in trauma, whatever our parents, our mother's experiencing when we're in the womb. Like if she's always stressed, we can inherit some of that stuff. But also, what about past life or ancestral trauma? What's your take on all that?
Definitely. I mean, I do quantum healing, so that's like, shamanic, and I go into quantum work with clients, and I see all the time that pretty much every single injury or illness or physical thing that we have going on in our body or emotional is connected to something that happened in another lifetime, or it's coming from an ancestor. A really good story of this was, I had a client, actually her and her mother both came to me. Both of them had pneumonia like multiple times in their life. They both had
Mm.
autoimmune disorder. They both had lung issues. Like my one client, the daughter, she had gone sepsis from pneumonia when she was younger and almost died. So they had this ongoing, like they came into life with this. It was obviously coming from something genetic, or so. I basically did a session with both of them, and what ended up happening, I'm trying to remember if it was with the daughter. I think it was it was with the daughter. When basically I was in the session with her, all of a sudden there was an elderly woman, a woman who showed up, and I don't always see spirits, but there was a spirit showed up, and she had a baby in her hand. And I knew it was her a great grandmother, and I
Mm.
knew it was a baby. And I said, "Your great grandmother is here, and there's a baby, but she's telling me that the baby is dead, like the baby has died." And I don't know any of the history, nothing. And she says, "My great grandmother lost the baby when it was like 3 months old." And then I was feeling all this grief in the lungs. So then
Wow.
I was seeing basically the connection between the grief, that the grandmother did not process the grief, which is, very common for those older generations. They just kind of get up and move on. Like they don't really process. Even now, we're better at it, I think, in our generation, but they just hold on to the grief. So she died with all that grief from the loss of the baby, and passed it down to the generation next, which would have been her mother. And then that came into the daughter. So we worked with all the clearing the energies of that, clearing out the grief. And the one girl, she was having these crazy headache. Her headaches were gone after that session, like her ongoing migraines that she had, and her health all cleared up. So it is fascinating how we can actually track these things, and we can get to the root. I work with a lot of people who are experiencing some kind of trauma by either hanging or being burned. Like that's a very, very common one. And I don't go looking for things. I will just be taken into a timeline, and I will just see it. It'll just play out in front of me like a movie. And then I'll be able to heal and recover things from that scenario. It's
Mhm.
fascinating.
So you're talking about like the witch wound?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I come up against it a lot in sessions, because, look at our history. It's kind of dark. There's a lot of like, it's like it was like a fend for yourself kind of, these past times where we were just like people were warring and fighting and killing one another. And so I come into a lot of different things. I see a lot of different things. Some of them are really dark. Some of them are connected to the dark stuff on this planet. I come up against that kind of stuff. With clients, some of those clients have been, tracked, or they deal with really severe psychic attacks. So it's all, it all comes up in these kind of sessions. I'm just blown away. Sometimes I'm like, how, like, I can't even prepare myself for some of this stuff that comes up. I can't make it up. I should write a book about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. Did you develop for yourself like your a better understanding of your own family history because you said addiction runs in your family,
Yeah.
and there's many doctors, not just Gabor Mate, who's like a hero of mine, but there's many others. And what I love about Gabor is he shows the research that backs it up, where trauma is there's a key component there with addiction. Like you can't become addicted if without having some type of emotional pain and psychological pain, some wounds, which what trauma means. Did you find like maybe a connection there with trauma with your family line?
So I'm sort of like ready to delve into that with my own life. I can do it for others easily, but for my own self, it's not as easy in terms of
Yeah.
like I can go into someone's field and I can track it, not for myself though. But what I've been doing is connecting with my father's family, because we were separated from him very young, and I didn't stay super connected with that side of the family, which is Irish. And so I've just been doing, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go, because I know that all the way down the line, many of the men died. It was my dad, his brother, his dad, like, so there's a whole line of men who have died of overdose or addiction of some kind. So obviously there's and it's really tough, I think, because if you're like born in a tribe, or you're born in a different time where your lineage, but a lot of times we don't really know past our great grandfather. We don't know anything. So I'm starting to dig into that to find out where, there was probably something really traumatic that happened way down the line to carry that forward into and then we have to be the generation. I feel like we are the generation to break those cycles. In terms of, it's more the men in my family, but and so I have a couple of nephews, and I'm always telling them, like, they're the ones that need to break the cycle. Like, they're the ones that need to heal that for the family, like for the generations, because it actually does heal the past when we heal it in the present.
Mm.
So, yeah, it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially Ireland, because alcoholism runs pretty heavy in that collective.
Yeah.
And what happened? What happened as a collective where that is running? Because we can say the genes, but there's always usually something else, especially with epigenetics, how it turns what really happened, because I actually have the Kilgore clan, you know, um I have a strong my grandfather, his mother was a Kilgore, and there's a strong family line with the Kilgores where they came from Northern Ireland, Scotland area.
Okay, yeah,
And
yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah, you can even Google 'em and you'll have a whole background with the Kilgores, like, whoa,
Wow.
yeah. Reading some of that, but so, yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
so
interesting. Oh, go ahead.
I'm just going down that rabbit hole right now, because I'm like, okay, I need to do this before some of them aren't alive anymore, and get to just find out everything that I can. So yeah, I'm in that investigation. It's going to be pretty fascinating, I think, to see. But I do think that there was some very deep trauma on those lands, and that there's some really powerful ancient heritage there too. Like,
Yeah.
there's some, I'm looking into that too, because I'm fascinated by all that, to really understand, like, who were these people? What were they up to?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's interesting. One of the topics I love, and I've heard you share on it, and it's like, wow, where you talk about addicts and entity attachments. I'd love for you to elaborate on that for us if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I mean, entity work is a big part of what I do. And so, what I have seen and witnessed, experienced personally, and, over the years is that there's always a connection, with entities. Sometimes these entities literally will follow people through lifetimes, or generations, like ancestry. But when a person is addicted, they have entity attachments. And the entities are literally feeding on the usage of the drug or alcohol, so they're like, it makes it extra hard for someone who's an addict to quit, because they have all this good intention, but it's like having this entity that wants to be fed. And I mean, I know I've seen addicts personally, like I've experienced them. First of all, it's not them anymore. At a certain point, it's not even the person. It's sad, but that person is not, really there anymore to that extent. Sometimes the entity has taken over. Um, and then, alcohol is another thing where they call it spirits because spirits can also come in. And I've witnessed that as well, where like a person all of a sudden is not the same, and it's not the alcohol, it's something else, you could tell. And yeah, I've seen that many times. And so that's another opening, but a lot of people who, they want to quit drinking, but they just, next thing you know, they find themselves either vaping or drinking or using some kind of drug. They're also dealing with entities, so it's a very vicious cycle that people get into. So a lot of times, like, to really recover fully from any kind of entity attachment, people really need to get off the substances. I've had clients before who are addicted to certain pharmaceutical drugs, and they keep coming to me with entity attachments, and I can remove them, but then they come back and they say, "Oh, it's back again." And I say, "Well, did you quit doing the drug?" No, they didn't quit doing the drug. And I kept telling them, "Well, you are wasting your money with me until you quit doing the drug." So, and it's hard, but that's I mean, I have people like that. They just can't get out of the cycle of the addiction. But I've had people who have obviously cleaned up, and been able to get out of the cycle. And then the entities will, you know, they won't be able to feed off them anymore.
I love that. Being in the 12-step community for many years, I don't go anymore, but, I've been sober for a long time, but
Good.
I would see the shame. There's a lot of shaming going on with newcomers if they don't actually get the program, and they're blaming them instead of looking at our own customs and our own approaches and the way we try to help people. And a lot of times it's become frozen and outdated in many ways. There's a lot of great qualities in the 12-step community, but there's a lot of outdated understanding and stuff, or there's stuff they didn't understand at the 1939 that we know now. But one thing that's pretty powerful is, like, you're talking about a whole different way to help approach an addict with entity attachments, and that's not talked about in the 12-step community for sure. Even though the co-founder was like a psychic and he was
Sure.
actually a medium himself. But Carl Jung said something like "spiritus contra spiritum" in Latin, which means spirits against spirit.
Mhm.
And I think if we have a lot of unresolved pain, you know, and trapped energy, trapped emotions that are like traumatic from traumatic events, and we drink alcohol, is that like shooting up a red flare up in the astral world for these
Definitely.
entity attachments to come in, like a open?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. They feed on that. They feed on shame and guilt and fear and the lower frequencies. So, they feed on that. So if somebody is, getting opening themselves up with a substance, um the trauma is an entry point for entities and takeover. So I see people with a lot of trauma, they sometimes get they can get sort of taken over. I've seen that as well. And it's the trauma that's sort of the entry point. So the more people do shadow work and the more people actually do the inner work, they're way stronger in the chance of any kind of energies being able to access them because they've healed. So because they it's like they know, I share this a lot too. It's like they know what your weak points are, you
Yeah.
know? So they know your weak points. They know, we were talking about this. This is a little bit of a segue, but I was just speaking with a friend about this. So we see a lot of these really famous influencers or spiritual teachers who get like hijacked, or they get all of a sudden they're dark. They were one way and now it's like what happened? And it's almost like they are because there's the fame, the money, the power that goes along with like, all of a sudden becoming this high profile person in the public. If that person hasn't worked on their ego, there's an entry point. There's an entry point for darker forces to kind of like come in, and it happens a lot. It happens a lot. All of a sudden you're like, wow, that person is like, they're not the same. Like they were so good and now they're just, it's darkness. So it's something else. It's another entry point that things can attach.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I used to follow a guy before he got famous, and I seen the change in him, and then he went off of the Anunnaki story and Thoth, and used that for fame and started creating all kinds of stories, and you could see the ego blowing up, which means there's a lot of unresolved issues he had within himself,
Yeah.
and you get to see him take off with that stuff, and came about money and fame.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just sad to see, but that's part of the journey here for all of us. So
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah. And it's something that we see it and we go, people have to really watch that ego side.
and what's scary is they're so intelligent and they can articulate a whole story really pretty. So it's easy to buy into their narratives.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean I still can't learn from them, but I have to be cautious with stuff, and I think that's where that intuition kicks in too, because
Yeah.
you develop a good bullshit filter.
Yeah, we all have a bullshit meter. As I say, where's your bullshit meter? It's like, yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
How would you explain energy healing to someone that only understands the physical world?
So I would say, first of all, like the physical world is like literally not even 1% of what reality is. So
Hmm.
reality, like the real energy is 99.999% of everything. So me as even a being, I'm actually an energy. Like when you take it down to science, I'm energy, this table is energy, everything is energy. And the physical matter is only 1%. So it's the smallest amount. And we focus on that because that's all we've been trained to. We've been actually like indoctrinated and programmed to only really understand what the physical is. So when we really understand that energy is really everything, like it's the greater substance of the universe, then we can understand that even though we can't see it necessarily, it exists. And so when I'm working with energy, first of all, I feel it, I can see it, but not everybody can, but when I'm working with a client, for example, like I can see what's going on in their energy field. I can feel in my body what's happening in their body. So I know, like I'll tune into their injuries. I'll tune into their emotions, their physical issues, if they have medical issues, which is just all energy. I'm feeling it on an energetic level. And then what we can do is we can shift it on an energetic level, because actually if something's manifesting physically, it's first manifesting energetically. So it starts in the energetic field and then it comes into the physical. Like as an example, cancer. Cancer starts as an energy first and then it manifests physically. So when we go in and we do energy work on something like that on an energy level, then it will trickle down into the physical. It's harder when it gets to that stage. Like if someone gets energy work before it's gotten to that phase, because, it'll be in the emotional body before it hits the physical body. So we can work on it in the emotional body or the other energy fields. So, a lot can be done. I mean, miracles can happen through energy healing. Like, I mean, I've had clients who, sometimes it can be so intense that they have like very physical purges for a couple of days after a session. You can't make that up, right? It's because the body is healing. Or like migraines disappearing after one session, or whatever the physical issue is, pain. I found recently I worked with a client. I don't know, when I work with a client, I don't ask anything about them. So I personally don't want to know what's happening with them. So I worked with this woman and I found something right here. Like she had an attachment right here. And I
Wow.
just feel it. I see it. I feel it. And so again, we're not dialoguing. So I just remove it. That's it. And I actually it was her husband who I worked with first. And he said, I've been trying to get that off of her energetically for 6 years, he told me. He said she had we're aware, like she told me after she had so much pain there for years. And it was like it was an entity and it was hooked in right here. And, he was like, I've been literally trying to remove that from her for 6 years. And I was like, well, there you go. Like, I mean, you can't, like, he didn't tell me it was there. I didn't know it was there. I found it because it's there. It's there on an energetic level. So I don't know if that's too complicated or if that, does that help?
Oh yeah, it does. I appreciate that. And I know you love David Hawkins. I've heard you talk about reading his books, and one of his famous works is The Map of Consciousness.
Yeah.
Right. And when I was sitting in meetings for several years, I would hear the same limiting beliefs. And I was like, it was weird because I could almost see the veil. I could see how I almost felt like you could feel the egregore, that
Yep.
collective entity that we developed over the generations from these same beliefs.
Yeah.
And it kind of kept people kind of like a collective entity attachment, if that makes sense. And I felt it. I could see how it could keep people in a lower frequency, whether they're aware of it or not, and once you raise because the 12 steps are beautiful, the principles are the same principles that are in every religion, in every spiritual tradition. These are universal principles, but then these belief systems is what keeps people, even religions, you see what divides them is the belief systems. They share the same principles. But when we raise our frequency, our consciousness, are we no longer, do we still have to worry for these entity attachments, or is that how by raising our consciousness, is that how we free ourselves from having these entity attachments?
Yeah, yes, to some level, that is true. Definitely as we go up in consciousness, the limiting beliefs will fall away, which you could look at as energies, those are energies of some kind. And then, like it's interesting because some people profit greatly on people who have entity attachments. So they promote it like this, it's very fear-based. Yeah. And from my personal experience, like from someone who was I went through all the attacks myself for many years, and I've worked with so many clients now. And there is something to be said about when you're vibrating, when your frequency is very high and you have a certain authority, it also comes with having an understanding of your inner authority and the fact that we don't need to fear them. If you fear them, then there's an entry point. But if you are not, if you have your strong shield because your frequency is high and you are in no fear of these things, then they can't really hook into you. They have nothing to sort of prey on. But one thing I do see a lot is that when people try to elevate, when they're ready to up level, they're going through a big shift and they're up leveling. That's a lot of times when attacks will come because it's like the energies are trying to bring them back down. Sometimes this is with family. Like sometimes it's your own family, it's your own friends, it's your spouse that are like trying to pull you back down. And there's an energetic around that is an actual science. Like it's a normal thing. Like if people knew that this was a normal thing, it would be easier for them
Yeah.
because it's almost like these energies want to keep us in a lower space. They do. They want to maintain you in a certain space. So you start to elevate, the energies come in and try to balance that out. So it's something that people have to overcome on their journey to going to a higher place or a higher level of consciousness. But once you maintain it, you get there and you don't let those things pull you down, because if you give them energy, like the spouse that's upset at you and the spouse that's trying to take you down or the family member, if you feed the energy with negativity, then you're allowing that to pull you back down.
I appreciate that. Do you believe there's like sometimes I wonder like is there these elites? Are these intelligent kind of like sick individuals that understand all this the way it works? And is that why we're being fed in the media constantly fear, division, hate, racism, all those lower vibrational frequencies that are being thrown at us in all areas, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, they that's their playbook. I mean, they want to keep us divide and conquer, whether that's through religion or race or political party.
Yeah.
That's their game. And I just like always say like it's a show. This is entertainment. This is literally for entertainment purposes only. It's not like the what they project on the TV and the news and all of this stuff to get people all like riled up, the collective, to get them to focus their energy on some event that happened so they can loosh all the energy and take all the energy. They are manipulating people through the media, through even the phones. So yeah, it's definitely something that they do to control the masses. They do that intentionally. And so I always say like our attention is currency. It's our highest
Mm.
currency, and that's why they want it, because if they have our attention, they have our consciousness and they have our soul. But if we are aware and awake and we're paying attention to what we're paying attention to, we are in control. Like I'm very mindful about what I watch, what I allow into my field, because whatever I give my attention to, I am consenting to that. So I'm allowing that into my energy and into my consciousness. And so I say, like, do I want this? Like, is this something that I want? Is watching this something that I agree to? Do I consent to this? And then I'm like, nope. And then I just go, like I'm very intentional, mindful about what I agree with, what I allow.
Yeah. Yeah, with awareness, you can kinda drop it like it's hot, like that Snoop Dogg song. I was like yeah, yeah, it's just interesting, like, it feels like so many people just fall into that stuff, and it's like, damn, you could see all that suffering for nothing. They're just believing in the yeah, it's just crazy to me watching that over and over, and then people are just unconscious, but maybe that's part of the path as well, right?
Yeah, and I think they want, there's an agenda that they're hoping to have play out, which is the AI, agenda, and I feel like people are gonna either choose that path or they're gonna choose the path of more authenticity, more truth, more what's real, and that's kind of like a choice that we're gonna have to make. We're making it now. We're in it. We're in that choice right now.
You created I've seen one of your posts, and I've heard this before that, water is like a living library, and I love that. And if our body's made up of water, I don't know how many percent it was, like 70 something, or it could vary for people. I
Yeah, I
don't
mean,
know.
it's close to it's like 80-90% water.
Wow.
We're water, yeah.
So, like in the Bible, it says, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." So, if I'm playing this lot of negative garbage unconsciously, this rap music when I'm growing up, and I have a lot of trauma, and I'm living in a really lower frequency, with a lot of ignorance and violence and gang banging and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I could only see the imagery that's within the body that creates disease later, right? That's so important why we should do inner work, because we can create disease later down the line if
Yeah.
we're stuck in these lower frequencies,
Yeah.
especially if we're made up of water. It's like, wow.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even the mind body connection, like if we have a negative mind, we can be a very beautiful person on the outside, but if our mind is negative, we're going to hurt the body in that sense, like how we talk to our body, how we view, our physical body. And because we are water, we're storing the memory of that. When it's been proven that you can just give love to water and it will shift the frequency of the water, and same with your body. So you can literally just be in gratitude or be in a higher frequency, and that will change your body. And yeah, the water work is just it's incredible. I mean, what you can do with water, and understanding that, they don't want us to know what water really is. But it's coming out more, it's coming out more and more, like with people's work, like Veda Austin and her work with her freezing technique is pretty fascinating, where she will put something on the water, or ask the water a question, or say put like an image, and
Yeah.
the water will, just shows that water is intelligent and it stores memory. It's so fascinating.
So from a shamanic perspective, would you say water is like a Akashic memory of Gaia in a way?
Yeah, I do feel that it stores the memory of everything that ever happened. So even in the future, past, present, future, it
Huh.
it stores the record of everything. So it is, and it is plasma. Plasma is like the higher form of water, you could say, and they've proven that now, that plasma is basically, you could say energy or plasma, and that's what our reality is made of, and that's what we are. We are plasma. And water is also the lower form of plasma. It's the form that we can actually see, and it has the record of everything. So we can work with water like it's living. Water is living. Well, not all the water that we drink is living, but it is intelligent. And so there's like practices that I even teach. I have a master class on this that I did about giving people ways that they can work with their water, ways they can work with sacred waters, and even heal the body with water. If someone's sick, like even just praying over their water, blessing their water with gratitude will actually shift the water, and then you bring that into your body.
Wow. Wonder if they did any I think they have with holy water when they bless the water.
Probably. Yeah, and I
Probably.
think in the Bible, water is mentioned so many times more than anything else. Like water was a biblical, they knew that water was sacred. They knew the power of water. So they talked about it a lot in the Bible.
It's crazy because the Bible has so many beautiful spiritual jewels, but it's also been used for propaganda purposes in many ways as well. Like, don't trust your heart. You know, the bodies don't this you're this it's bad. This flesh, and it's like all this like, or someone having to die for your sins. You're a sinner, and it's like, man, it's crazy.
Yeah, and I've talked about it a fair bit, and I get people getting so, I mean, I can't even count how many times people told me that I need to repent. And that I need to find Jesus, and I have a relationship with Jesus and Christ, and I very much do without the religion, and I think there are probably some really beautiful truths, but unfortunately, I think they put the programming in just the right places in the Bible. So people are like, I mean, they just repeat the same thing to you, and there's no opening for, and the problem I have with it is that they threw out anything that connects you with yourself. Like you have to go through Jesus, or, you have to follow the church or whatever it is to actually connect to God. And it's like, no, it doesn't work that way. The kingdom of God is within you. and
Yeah.
and yeah, they just basically labeled everything as demonic, which is, they just don't want people actually knowing who they are, what their true power is.
And you're always getting attacked on your social media at times, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh my goodness. I mean, I take screenshots of some of the things, and, I used to share them in stories a little bit, but I stopped. But I have been attacked like crazy. Like, I mean, I have so many things and so many people, and it used to bother me, but it doesn't really get to me anymore. But I just think, wow, like, people are to be able to say that to somebody just because they have a different view, to be able to have to go and quote after quote after quote to prove something that you believe against what somebody else believes. And yeah, I don't argue with people really anymore, because like they are stuck on their own perspective and they're not willing to, be open. I think that's a big problem with the world, because what I understand about quantum reality is that whatever we believe is true. So no
Yeah.
one's actually right. Like, or they're right and I'm right. Like, we're literally both right, and we're arguing about who's right, and we're both right. So it's like, I'm going to let you be right over there because that's what you choose. That's what you believe. You believe the Bible. So that's your reality, and I have mine, and I'm not going to argue about it.
I did a video with the alchemist about that. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, you're right. And when people do need to attack you, they're just insecure with themselves. Says more about them versus you.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's like, that's sometimes I'll just say, time to look in the mirror because you're coming after me and I'm just over here doing my thing, and it's like, it really does come from a place of ego or wounding. And some of them say the most nastiest things. And it's like, how is that Christ like? How is
Yeah.
saying that a person, people have told me that I need to die, that that I'm going to be, that God is going to come after me and I'm going to die, or I'm going to be like just awful, And I'm like, how does that come from God? Like, is that, but I mean, I guess if you look back at our history, that's how it was, with the religions, they were killing people in the name of God. So,
There's a big conference in LA every year. It's coming up. I'll be there. And, and I sat in one of the, there's so many different things going on, but I sat in one of the speakers, was talking. And when I walked in, they kind of gave props to my podcast. But as they were talking, they were talking about the map of consciousness, right? And they brought up Trump and how they put him high on the map of consciousness. He pretty high. I was like, whoa, and I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I care about humanity. I don't get caught up in the labels and all that. But I was like, understanding myself, I can understand others better, right? And the human condition. And I see a lot of unresolved trauma in Trump. And you hear blaming other people, always, speaking victimese, I call it, and just always shadow projecting onto others, and dehumanizing certain people. And just, there's not a lot of higher consciousness unless it's probably for the love of power and money.
yeah.
But there's not a lot of higher consciousness, and that doesn't take someone with a certain label to understand that, unless you understand yourself. And yeah, it's like, no, but I didn't say anything. I like, how can you put someone that's always speaking, blaming other people, and putting a lot of fear and those radical, it's just funny, the certain same key words that they use on both sides do. And it's just like, yeah, I don't know. I just couldn't understand how they could put someone like that so high up on the map of consciousness.
Yeah, I'm questioning whether that's true or not. You know, I mean, I used to. I remember. I mean, I don't do. I think I don't know. It's been several years now where I kind of just realized that the whole political thing is they're all working for the
Yeah.
same whatever. It's the same
Yeah,
thing, right?
you're right.
And at one point I thought Trump was the savior, but then I started like a couple of elections went by and I thought they're just playing everybody. Like, do people
Yeah.
forget what they did 2 years ago? I'm thinking, how do they not know that this is all BS? Like, they're literally just playing both sides. And so I just kind of removed myself from, being too like, I observe it a little bit here and there because we're in the world, and
Yeah.
that's their movie essentially. That's the movie that they're playing, but we don't have to play their movie. And so I kind of just go, I don't know if he's higher consciousness. I don't know. Some people say that there's two different Trumps and the one that's there now is not the good one, but who knows? I don't know. I don't know.
You experienced shapeshifters,
Hmm.
which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Would you like to expand on that if you don't mind?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So, this was about 9 years ago, 9 years ago now. And I knew of reptilians. I was aware of them and I believed in them, and it was just like, going about my life. And I was at the movie theater. This is a funny story. I was at the movie theater with my partner and we were getting our tickets for the show. And it was really busy. It was a Saturday night, super busy. And I just noticed from like far across the movie theater, very big place, not in the watching the movie. This was getting the tickets. This woman was just glaring at me like with hatred. Like she was cutting across the room with just sheer hatred towards me. And we were like having a good time and I was really feeling good and was laughing and stuff. And I was like, why does this woman hate me? I don't understand why she's looking at me like this. And we ended up just getting into the lineup to get our tickets because they had one of those machines, but it wasn't working. So we're in the lineup and I'm standing there with my partner. We're talking and she starts walking by us, and she's with her husband and two kids. And the kids are ahead and the husband is ahead. And as she passes me face to face, she looks right at me and she hisses and her eyes change, her whole mouth, like the tongue and everything comes out.
Wow.
And I'm like, my first reaction, it wasn't even like a thought. I just hissed right back at her. Like I didn't even I'm like, you're gonna hiss at me, I'm gonna hiss at you. And it was so bizarre because I know it was funny, like that was just me at the time. I'm still the same. Like if you're gonna hiss at me, I'm gonna hiss back. But like I knew, obviously, I saw her shapeshift. I knew she hated me, like she just couldn't stand my energy for whatever reason. And it was so weird because her kids her family was right ahead. Like they should have noticed, but it was like they were in another dimension. Like it was like they had no awareness because it was like so obvious how she like honed in on me and singled me out. I don't know why, still to this day. She didn't like my frequency or something, but it was like, how did they not? It's like she was able to veil them in some way so they didn't see it. My partner did. He was right there. Like he saw me. And people are like, oh, you hissed at a lady in the movie theater. When they hear me share this, they make fun of me. Like, oh yeah, you were probably eating your popcorn too loud. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. It was in public. And then people will say, well, why didn't you get a photo? How is that possible? Like
Yeah,
it's
right.
a split second. It's a split second thing. I don't know why I would ever make that up. I mean, I could never forget that happened because it was just like, it was so bizarre. And I think that now, I mean, I've seen other shapeshifters. I've seen quite a few. And I also, in my quantum work, I will a lot of times be clearing out reptilian interference. So maybe she could foresee that I could, do something to them. I don't know. Some-
So did that change your perspective with David Icke, or what he says?
I knew of David Icke back then. It was him and another shaman that I learned about reptilians from. So that's probably what opened my eyes to like knowing that they were reptilian or that they existed and knowing that she was reptilian. And I mean, I just knew for sure. I mean, I seen it with my own two eyes. And then in later years, probably about 4 years ago, there was two people, separate people, they don't know each other, that I knew that were reptilian. I could tell they were reptilian. I seen them shapeshift in person. And I actually caught both of them on video. So both of them did videos. It was not related at all, but I saw on the video when they posted it, I watched them, like you could see the shapeshifting on the video.
Wow.
Right away, I did a screen recording which I have still. And both of them shapeshifted. Both of them took those videos down. So someone probably told them like,
Wow.
hello, you're shapeshifting on video. You should probably take your video down. So, but I still have those videos. I've shared them with people, and their eyes are changing. They're shapeshifting. It's not just the lighting. It's them changing. But I knew they were reptilian previously. I could see it. The one guy, I seen his face change multiple times. The other girl, I knew. I knew just by looking at her that she was reptilian. They're among us.
That's interesting. What did the shaman say?
The shaman?
Yeah.
So the shaman was one of my original teachers in 2010. And he was talking about everything that was going to happen in 2020. He was talking about who the players were, what the wild cards were, who runs the world, like everything. And he had already been talking about that for like a decade, and so that was in 2010 when I learned from him. And he was the one who was originally taught me about reptilians. He was the one talking about reptilians and who the real controllers of the world are, and who's running the show behind the scenes. And so that's kind of when I opened up my mind to that. And I always say too, like, I didn't just follow what he taught me and say, oh, this is true. I literally experienced it for myself over my lifetime. So I didn't really believe anything he told me until I actually experienced it myself. I think that's really important, because I think a lot of people will just all of a sudden take on someone else's truth. And that's dangerous, really,
Yeah.
to just believe blindly what's their own experience. So being open and open and listening and open to other perspectives. But until we really experience it, how do we know if that's even true, especially in this day and age?
How did you get into shamanism? That's pretty interesting. I mean, did that call you? Did you feel a calling, or?
I felt a calling. It was like I just started with the energy healing path, and then I was basically just guided. Like, it was like I needed to heal. And in my own journey of wanting to heal myself, I came into shamanic work. And, that was like the one thing out of all the things that I have done that really allowed me to heal. Like the path of the shamanic path and the initiations you go through, and seeing yourself and learning who we are, like what our power really is. And so, yeah, it was just the path that kind of always stuck with me. And still to this day, it's still like something that I teach. And I think there's obviously, just like anything, there's different lineages and different factions. And, some of them are, who knows, there's so many. But I really like the Andean tradition, which is the tradition that I've learned several lineages, but the Andean tradition, I've spent time in Peru quite a bit with the Cuero shamans. And they're just amazing. And they work with energy. They don't do any kind of plants or substances. They work with energy. And it's very simple. Everything is quite simple. Reciprocity is their main teaching. It's like you get what you give, so it's really beautiful that way. And it's how the world works, right? So I really like the Cuero shamans, and I've worked with many of them, also trained by Juan Núñez del Prado, he's an anthropologist from Peru, and he's the one who primarily brought the Cuero teachings to the West. So I've got lots of videos of him because I've been in Peru several times with him, and he just knows so much of the history of of the Inca and of the and I think the reason why I've been drawn to it so much is because it really stems from Lemuria. It really stems from like, these are remnants. Their teachings are remnants of Lemuria and Atlantis.
What have they told you about Lemuria or Mu? I was just telling a lady that's part of the Tongva tribe a little bit. She was unaware of Lemuria.
So this is really kind of interesting. So there's a place called Uros in Lake Titicaca. Uros. It's a place that basically the Uros people, when the Spanish came, they took their homes out and they built these floating reeds, and they built them out on Lake Titicaca so they couldn't be invaded by the Spanish. And they still live there to this day, preserved. And they've actually made it like I forget the name, but the government won't touch it. They're allowed to stay there as the Uros people. And twice I've gone to this place where, there's a kind of like a touristy Uros, and then there's like the place that we go to, which is just a family of a man and his family, and they have like you can stay there out on the water there in Lake Titicaca. And this guy was just Avon is his name. He was just so unique, like so peaceful, so like you just could not, like, tourists would come and he was the host and he was the owner and feeding, and people would be like, they would want it to be warm, they would be complaining about they want wine, and it's like not that kind of place, right? And he was just so calm and so cool, and we wanted to do a despacho, which is like an offering to the water. And we said, hey, Yvonne, we're going to do a despacho. That's what the Cuero shamans do. And he was so honored that we wanted to do that. And he said, well, normally, if we're going to do something like this despacho, we would do it on a new moon, and it just happened to be a new moon. And he said we would take it to this very special place out on the water. So he said, I will take you to this very special place. We do it in the first thing in the morning. So we were like, oh my God, and it's actually a new moon and we're doing this. It's so cool. So we made our despachos and we went out in the morning. We got up at 5 a.m. We went out there with him, and he was like in no rush. We went 2 hours out on the man-made reed boats, and he's telling us stories and we're asking questions. And one of the things he told us was that basically their blood, because they haven't left Uros, they've always been there, and their people have always passed down that they came from the water. Like their original ancestors came out of the water. So they were Lemurians. And he said that they're so unique, their DNA and their blood is so unique that when they die, the government of Peru wants their bodies, like wants to do testing and do stuff with their bodies because they know their bodies are different. But they were different. Like they look different from the regular Peruvians. Like they're very indigenous. I mean, and just different. And I said to him, Yvonne, I see pyramids everywhere. Like there's pyramids everywhere in Peru, not just where they say they're like, there's mountains and then there's pyramids. And half of the time, the mountain is actually a pyramid from what I see. I said, is that true? He said, oh yeah, they're everywhere. He said they're underwater here. The pyramids are underwater on Lake Titicaca. And it's actually a Stargate there as well. So yeah, it's a very, very special place.
Wow. And they talk about their heritage, their galactic heritage, their with the star people. Did they bring that up?
Oh yeah. Yeah. They know even the Cuero shamans, like they know they're a star nation. They know they are. They've always known that. That's part of their lineage, their teachings, that they work with the stars. They work with also the mountain energies, the Apus, but they know they're like Palladian. They know they're star people, which is, we should too all know that we're star people. It's pretty cool when you have like these indigenous, I believe there's also the Dogon tribe of Africa. I mean, I'm sure many indigenous lineages, they all, they're aware of the truth of who we are. It's just the government that doesn't want us to know.
Even at Mesopotamia, ancient Mesopotamia, you'll see a whole map of all the solar system and stuff. How do they have all that? It's interesting.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the elongated skulls that are found around the world, even in especially Peru, do they have a story behind that? Do you know of?
I'm trying to remember what I've heard about that. I feel like they know that they're from, like their ancestors or whatever. They're star beings, aliens. One thing I did see in Peru is they have this is it a mummy? It's so creepy. Oh, they have this alien mummy thing. and we went to go see it. Oh my
Wow.
goodness. It's this place. It's this famous alien mummy, a mummified alien. And they took us there to go and pray and do whatever. And it is a small little alien thing. And it's there, like I saw it. And it is like it's a little alien baby, you
It's
know.
like inches, right?
Yeah, it's only like this big. It's small. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, I think I've heard of it. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's the same thing.
I saw it. I can't say that I felt any kind of like, it was a little creepy. I was like, what? I'm like, I don't know about this. But I did see it. I saw
Did you
it.
take a picture of it, or they
I
didn't
don't
let
think
you?
we were allowed. I don't think we were
No.
allowed to. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it looked like an alien, but I was kind of like a little skeptical about it, but it did look like an alien.
Wow. Do you believe that we reincarnate? You definitely believe in reincarnation, or are we living multiple lives all at once? What's your take on all that?
Well, I do. So I believe that I do believe that everything is happening simultaneously at the same time, as in like, because I've experienced that myself, that all the lives are happening, but we do reincarnate. I don't think it's natural that we keep coming back over and over and over again, but it's like you could say we have like an oversoul. This way I've experienced it. We have like a monad or an oversoul, like a highest self. And with that highest self, you could see like all these fingers were like extensions of different bodies, of different lives. And they're all happening at the same time. They're just on a different frequency. So that's why we don't see them, but they're there and they're happening. It's just that they're on a lower or a higher frequency, whether that's a future would be higher frequency, past would be lower. So that's why when we heal things in past life work or soul retrievals and things like that, it actually ripples through the timelines.
I love that.
Yeah,
No, I
it's pretty
appreciate it. I would love to have you back in the future, and I do want to buy your book. Maybe you could share where to get your book and your links for people.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, my book is on Amazon, The Ultimate Guide to Shamanism, and I'll send I have like several free offerings. I have an ebook on the dark arts about, entities and things like that. And yeah, several free offerings, and that people can get those from the links that I sent you.
Speaking of that, when you say removing darts from your clients, what does that mean?
So that's like, a lot of times like these darts they're etheric weapons. So they could be darts, arrows, some kind of tag or knives even. They can be all kinds of things, but energetically, that's an energetic thing in their energy field. And so I will find those and remove them. I've had people put them in me too. I mean, I've had to have them removed from myself, but there's real kind of witchy people out there, or black magic type stuff that happens. And, it's something very common that I will find in clients. I'll find different etheric weapons in them and take them out. And then they'll have huge shifts. Like sometimes it's like a headache that's ongoing. One of my clients that I worked with recently, she was dealing with that, and she was having an eye twitch that wouldn't stop. As soon as I removed what was in there, the eye twitch was gone, like immediately. Wow. Yeah. So unexplained things are usually some kind of weird energy.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you coming on. I really do. I'd love to have you back.
I'll come back anytime. Anytime I'll come back. I love it. I'm so happy to be on your podcast, and I love the conversation. So I come back anytime.
Yeah, it's the #1 podcast right now in Japan.
Is it really?
Sounds good, huh?
It does sound good, especially in Japan, like of all.
Well, appreciate you coming on. I'd love to have you back, and talk to you soon.
Thank you. Take care.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Just know we out here. Know we out here working in a major way. Had to speak on it just to make a break. Any given subject, know we make a way. Time to level up on a day-to-day. Know we out here working for the greater good. Expand your mind, broaden your lens the way you should. From the stars to the galaxy to speak on spirituality. Higher understanding for the neighborhood.